All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's video. So if you haven't already, just a little bit of housekeeping. This is a continuation from my last video. So if you're watching this on Instagram, you can find it on my IGTV. If you're watching it on Facebook, you can find it in the link. Well, you can find it on IGTV. And then if you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the description box. So basically, I'm going to be continuing talking about why hustle culture is killing us, why the abundance teachings in spirituality are out of alignment with truth, and why we, as people who have resources available to us, can start to be the change so that every human being on this planet can have enough. Because that is what this is really about. That we are living in a time and a place where there is enough for everyone to have enough. But we need to understand what enough is. And we need to understand how to take this journey away from the fear and the indoctrination that there isn't enough and that we need to be doing what we're doing, like what we're going to talk about today. And that's what really this is about. Okay, and then second housekeeping thing before we go on. Please, please, please understand that the very first step in listening to anything that I have to say, ever, is that you are good. Is to know that you are good. You are not the reason that culture exists the way that it exists. You are not the reason society is how it is. You are not the reason these systems exist. When you start to recognize in yourself that you are participating in systems that are harmful to you and harmful to others, it is not because you are a bad person. And so if you're listening to me speak today in this video or in the last video or in any of my videos, and you feel shame and you feel like you're being blamed and you feel like you're being guilted and you feel like you're a bad person, please know that that is not reality. That is not the truth about you, and that's not what I'm trying to say. Okay? Because we have to understand that we are not blank slates. We don't come into the world just completely blank and then get a perfect childhood where we're all like supported and loved and taught what real reality is and how things work. And then we just mindfully choose in our adulthoods to go and be destructive to ourselves and others. Okay? And at the same time, when we learn something, when we learn about the harm we may be causing, the harm that we are causing ourselves, the harm that we're causing others, the ways in which we are living out of alignment, again, you can't apply what you know now, what you just learned, and the information you now have, the awareness you now have, to your past actions. Go back and say, I was a piece of shit back then for not doing anything about the thing I know about now but didn't know about then. Okay? We have a habit of applying our hindsight to our past self and then just shaming and guilting and feeling bad about our past self as though they knew what we currently know and we're just choosing to be shitty. And that is never the case. Okay? So as you learn the things I'm going to talk about today, as you become aware of these things, you got to remember that you're becoming aware of them now. And at the same time, the last thing is, so you're becoming aware of them now. So don't beat up past you for not acting on information current and future you has, but past you didn't have. That's what we got to recognize. Okay? Shame and guilt never actually motivate us to make positive change. Shame and guilt make us feel rejected, make us feel like we're bad, which triggers our fight and flight, puts us into a state of fear, puts us into a state of lockdown, because that's what happens when we're in a state of fear. So now, even though we do know better, we do know something different, we can't act on it because our nervous system is in a state of fear, which says, do what you've always done. Okay, that's what the fear nervous system does. It locks us in patterns of behavior and makes it impossible for us to change. So if we try to shame and guilt ourselves into being different, we guarantee that we can't change. The only way to actually change based on the information that you're learning is to make it safe for yourself to learn the information. You have to love yourself. You have to have compassion for yourself that you didn't know this stuff. Or maybe you intellectually knew it, but you didn't feel it, because that's the last thing. We don't learn until we feel. We are visceral learners, all of us. We can intellectually understand something as much as we want, but until we viscerally have an experience of understanding that information, like we feel the consequences of our actions, we don't really learn. So learning oftentimes goes a lot slower than we want it to. And being able to make changes goes a lot slower than we want it to. And that's okay. Okay? That's reality. That's how our nervous systems work. So we just have to be nice to ourselves. That's the big thing. All right. So moving on. Hustle culture. Right? This culture that we're all living in, that's telling us that we need to be constantly productive, constantly bettering ourselves. Okay? And this is, I want to speak to the hustle culture because I know that a lot of us who are watching these videos consider ourselves spiritual, consider ourselves awakened, consider ourselves kind of counterculture, right? Not a lot of us are necessarily thinking like, I want the brand name clothes, I want the brand car, I want the, right? We probably consider ourselves not caught up in the consumerist mindset the way that the average person is, right? But even if we kind of identify, right, with I need to be doing better in my career, I need to be more successful, I should have the career and the perfect relationship and be traveling the world and having all these exciting experiences and doing my spiritual practices and becoming a better person and have the kids, and right, we are all on some level being told that who and what we are is not enough. So again, like it can be as secular as literally you don't have the right clothes, you don't have the right job, you don't have the right status, all the way to the spirituality and the self-help world, which tries to frame it differently, but really it's not different, with the teaching of you should be more spiritual, you should be meditating more, doing more yoga, you should be in a state where you're constantly becoming more aware, you're improving your relationships, you are becoming more helpful in your vocation, right? You should be more of service, more giving, more doing for other people. The way that you make money should be your purpose, something you're on fire for all the time. It should be something that makes you a lot of money so that you can be one of the good ones who has all the money in your hands so that you can be philanthropic or you can do whatever. And it needs to be something that lights you up and makes the world a better place and helps other people and makes you rich and that you're excited about all the time. You see, like these messages on over and over. And then even especially in the self-help world, you should be more spiritual. You should be less emotional, less reactive. You should not have coping mechanisms. You shouldn't ever get in conflict. Right? These messages of like, you're not spiritual enough. You're not improving yourself enough. You're not on top of yourself enough. That if you still have emotions, or if you still identify with yourself, or if you still have traumas and triggers, if you still have relationship issues, if you don't know what your purpose is, if you sometimes don't want to be improving yourself, and even like I said, if you're struggling to have this revelation of what your purpose is and then how that is going to make you money and how that's going to serve others and this big impact you're supposed to be having. It's all the same message, right? This is where hustle culture is infected every part of society, from the most secular to the most spiritual. These messages of constantly, there's something lacking in you. There's something in you that's not quite good enough. You still need another course, another meditation retreat, another emotional mastery product or program. You still need to be fixing this part of you. You can't rest yet. You're not good enough yet. There's still more for you to go at yet. And again, especially in the spirituality and the self-help world, we tend to not recognize that it's hustle culture because it's framed as helping other people and making your life better, right? Making you less emotional, making you less afraid, more productive, more creative, more connecting with people, more helpful, right? It's framed in this beautiful package of you should be these things because these are good things. These are obviously good things. Having a career that's your passion, that's a good thing. Why wouldn't you want that? Right? Having less emotion, like less negative emotion, right? We are all trying to get rid of our anxiety and our depression and our anger and our fear and our sadness. And why wouldn't you want that? So it's framed as, no, this is just a good thing. This is just an innocent good thing. And our spiritual teachers at this point, right? The relationship between spirituality and people who are teaching you meditations or teaching you yoga or teaching you cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever modality you're going down here to try to like discover yourself and to try to work on the things that brought you to spirituality in the first place, which are going to be pain, right? This is why we all get into spirituality. We get into spirituality because we're in pain, we're suffering, we don't know what the answer is. And again, a lot of us act and believe that our pain started with us, that we invented it, or we just like popped into adulthood and everything was fine, and then all of a sudden we're adults and we're in pain and we're destructive and we have these bad habits and we do these things. And spirituality comes in and self-improvement comes in and says, yeah, these are bad things about you. These are flaws. These are things you need to fix. And like I say, a lot of them, they don't say it that way. They say it like, I'm going to help you get rid of your anxiety. I'm going to help you get rid of your depression. I'm going to help you discover your purpose so that you can be constantly inspired and making all this money and having this huge impact. Right? We frame it like this. And so we're so deeply conditioned already that that's normal. There is something wrong with us, and there's something we should always be seeking. We're lacking something. We're not enough. That's the core message that we all already have and that we came by honestly. And then the spirituality and the self-help worlds are feeding into that. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, they're keeping you as a customer by constantly reinforcing this message that there's a transcended you that exists somewhere over there, right? The you that no longer feels negative emotion, the you that no longer identifies with your ego, the you that no longer has relationship problems, the you that no longer has health problems, the you that is completely on alignment and in your purpose and knowing what you're doing and blah, blah, blah. That you over there, that's the good you. That's your higher self. That's who you want to be. That's the you not in pain. And the you right now isn't that. The you right now doesn't have what that you has. The you right now is lacking something. Okay? And this is the constant message. And then that feeds into you can buy my product. You can buy my service. You will constantly be on the market for a spiritual or self-improvement or self-help something. Because the reality is, we as human beings are never going to be that transcended. That is not what life is. Okay, we're being sold a lie everywhere. So in the secular world, We're being sold the lie that if you just get the right career, you have the right clothes, you have the right friends, you have the right experiences, you have the right stuff, you have the right things, you have the right amount of money, you have the right amount of whatever, you're going to be happy. Happily ever after. Okay? Happily ever after. That when you get these things, you will feel finally safe. You will finally feel good enough. You will finally feel like you are good enough. And so long as you don't feel good enough, don't worry. Keep buying stuff. Okay? And if you've watched Century of the Self, which I've linked down below, if you're watching this on Facebook and if you're watching this on YouTube, the Century of the Self documentary very clearly explains how we got to where we are. So I'm going to back up even a little bit more, which is we need to understand that as a human race, forever, survival has been incredibly difficult. The fear of not enough, of not having enough, of not being enough, is something we came by completely naturally. Okay? It's not something that someone in a marketing room made up somewhere. It didn't start with our generation. It didn't start anywhere near anyone you know or ever knew. Not enough started from nature. Not enough started from nature. When we were in the wild, when we were the most primitive, first self-aware ape, we didn't understand how nature worked. We did not have the awareness, the tools, the resources that we now have as a humanity to grow food all the time, to protect ourselves from natural disasters, to medicate ourselves if we got sick. We were complete victims to a reality we didn't understand. And you can look back and you can see the spiritual practices of ancient tribes are nature-centered. Why? Because nature was God. Nature was absolutely the giver and the taker of life. And all of the practices were around trying to appease nature, trying to control nature, trying to predict nature, because not enough food, drought, disease, all these things take our lives. And we're all of a sudden animals that have self-awareness of our own death. Right? Like that's part of what makes the human a unique thing, is that we're aware of our own mortality. We are aware of our own mortality. We are aware that we don't know where we come from, and we don't know what happens after we die. But we know we're going to die. And we have all of these fears and all of these stories, because that's the other thing that's unique about us as humans, is that we can invent stories, invent things that don't exist, and convince ourselves that they are true. Right? And that is how, this is a double-edged sword. This is how we create things that have never existed before. Right? This is another part of what makes a human a unique thing, is our consciousness, our awareness of we can make up a story. We can imagine something that doesn't exist, and then we can create that thing. That's amazing. But at the same time, that means that we can be delusional. Right? So that's why we're different than the other animals who don't make up stories. They feel feelings. They have emotion, right? Like we can look at elephants and they like care for each other. And animals have an awareness of their own life, and they have an instinct to want to survive. They're like all the rest of life. Yes? And they definitely have nervous systems that we can prove and say like that's an emotional response that they're having. But they don't have what we have in the storytelling capacity. They don't have what we have in the existential awareness. And so because we came because we have this existential awareness of our own death and not knowing why it happens or how it happens, and for so long having like no control over it, right? Like really think about that. It wasn't until like the last like century, like nanosecond of how long humanity has existed, that we've had the capacity to predict weather patterns, to grow food outside of the patterns of nature, to resist disease, right? Like this is all really, really new stuff. So the threat to our survival because of not enough was reality, was life for most of humanity. So that's a trauma that we all carry in our DNA. Because your DNA, again, didn't start with you. Your physical body, the nervous system you have, the programming, the matrix, the blueprint of where your consciousness lives, didn't start with you. It didn't start with your family. If we trace everyone back, we are all connected to every human being that has ever existed. So our DNA carries information about these traumas and the adaptations humanity has made around these traumas to try to survive. Because ultimately, we have these higher awareness, this higher function, yes, but we also live in a body that is nature, that is just like all other nature, that just wants to survive. It wants to survive, it wants to survive. And if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the very top, it's self-expression. So we all have a genetic potential, a genetic blueprint. Like literally, we can take all the spirituality out of it if we want to. And just say, your nature with a design and a blueprint, and just like all other nature, your instinct is to express that. Like we are no different than a tree or any other thing that can grow. That it's doing what it's doing because it wants to express its potential. It wants to express, this is what my blueprint can become. The seed of the acorn tree contains all the information of the acorn tree, but it's not the acorn tree. It has to go on a journey. It has to do all these things to grow and expand and nourish and evolve its potential. And that's what it's doing. That's what it's wanting to do. And so then every time it gets struck by lightning, or it gets bugs, or the sun moves in a weird way, the tree adapts. Why? Because in order to express, we have to get our needs met. The tree has a requirement for nutrition, for sun, for air, for soil, to not be antagonized by lightning or bugs or whatever. And so it's going to be constantly adapting itself to its environment in order to get those needs met so that it can express its genetic potential. Humans are absolutely no different. This is why we do absolutely everything that we do. And until psychology and self-help and spirituality understands this concept, we're going to be stuck in this hustle mentality of there's always going to be something to fix about you that's broken. Because that is the fundamental misunderstanding that makes most of spirituality completely useless. We're not understanding that, no, literally everything you do, everything every human being does, forever and ever, is what it thinks it has to do to get its needs met, to express its genetic potential. Every self-sabotaging behavior we have is what we think in our nervous systems is the only way to get our need met. People who are manipulative and look like they literally get off on hurting other people, emotionally they don't feel the consequences of the action they're taking. All they perceive is, I'm getting my need met. I'm getting power, which makes me feel like I'm going to get my resources, which makes me feel safe. So that's good. So I'm not going to give that up. They don't feel I'm hurting someone else, right? There are definitely people on this planet who do lack empathy. They literally can't feel the consequences of their actions, versus the empath. So the people who are probably watching this video, who feel crazy most of the time. Like so much negative emotion, so much pain, so much anxiety, so much depression. And we're like, why? What's wrong with me? What's broken about me that I feel this way? And the reality is nothing. Absolutely nothing is wrong with you. You are feeling the impacts of our culture way more than everyone else is feeling it. So again, we started with the not enough being completely reasonable. That's how reality was for almost ever. And how it still is for a large portion of humanity, who are still absolutely in survival. They don't have infrastructure. They don't have medicine. They don't have sanitation. They don't have the basic building blocks that we have that make life easy to a degree, that has actually taken us out of the food chain. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then the spirituality world, right, has taken that. And, okay, no, the second thing is, again, the childhood trauma. The fear of parts of self are, again, fully born in our childhoods. You did not come into your adulthood and just decide to be destructive. Decide to know better but not be able to do better. Decide to self-sabotage. Decide to hurt yourself. Decide to hurt others. Decide to have anxiety. Decide to have depression. Decide any of these things. What happened in your childhood was you were fully and completely dependent upon your caregivers for absolutely everything. And you did not have a developed mental capacity. You had a nervous system. They were your God. They were nature. Think of it that way. If they decided they didn't love you, they didn't like you, they didn't want to understand you, they weren't paying attention to you, you didn't get your needs met. Your genetic potential, your nervous system, just like all other nature, would panic when that happened. Because existential threat. I'm not getting my needs met. I'm in pain. There's no cognitive awareness that mommy and daddy can be mad at me and still love me. That mommy and daddy can be frustrated and still meet my needs. That this part of me can be rejected by them and I'm still going to be okay. No. Okay, so again, I know this is hard for all of us, but every part of you that you reject, that you sabotage, that you assume is bad and wrong, that you hate about yourself, everything you do that's seemingly against what would be better for you now that you are an adult and you understand, comes from where you were rejected as a child. Because real reality didn't matter when you were a child. The only reality that mattered was the reality of your caregiver's opinions. If they thought something was good, it was good. Because if they approved of it, that meant you got approved of, and that meant to you and your nervous system you were going to get your needs met. If they disapproved of it, that was an existential threat to you. Because if they disapproved of a part of you, they disapproved of you, they did not meet your needs, and then you die. That's what your nervous system knows. So that is where all of your behaviors came from. You learned that some way that you are, some learning path you wanted to take, something in your potential, wanted to express, wanted to grow, got rejected, and then it got stunted. So you're trapped there. So this is why when we talk about the inner child, we all have the inner child. The parts of self that got stunted in childhood, that got stuck, didn't get to grow, didn't get to express, are stuck being rejected. So we wonder why we have these parts of self that act so immature, that literally regress us to infantile ways of being. And when we start to love ourselves, we don't find this great higher self that has all this wisdom. We find all these parts of self that are just horrified and afraid and want to do something but don't know how to do it, and are expressing in completely immature ways, getting needs met in completely immature ways, because that's all they know. They're children. They're literally stuck in childhood. And so this self-love path is about recognizing that there isn't something lacking in you. You have all the potential you need to become your higher self. It's already all there. It's in your DNA. It's just stunted. Right? And where you were taught to stunt yourself or not taught to meet your needs, like the tree, you're getting them met in some way, in some sneaky way. Like I say, the manipulator is getting their need for security and safety met through controlling others. The empath oftentimes gets their needs met for feeling safe, met through people pleasing and abandoning ourselves in order to get other people to approve of us. And that's what makes us feel safe. So again, the feeling that we all have that we're looking for the outside world to approve of us. We're looking for approval. And this is the other thing, right? So many of us come to spirituality with this mindset. I'm gonna do it good. Right? We're looking for the rule book. We're looking for the guru or the teaching or the whatever that then we can do perfect. And when we do perfect, we're gonna feel approvable, and then we're gonna feel safe. Right? This is what we're all going for. When we are looking for approval, what we are really looking for is that feeling of safety. Because to us, love equals provision. Safety is I'm going to get my needs met. I'm not going to be antagonized, and I am going to be supported in order to self-express. That's what we're looking for. So then, again, we come to spirituality. We come to all these practices with all of our anxiety and all of our depression and all of our fear and all of our self-sabotage. And spirituality and self-help reinforce the shitty message that, yeah, this is a flaw in you that like came from nowhere that we can help you get rid of. And it's bullshit. Because no, it didn't come from you. And no, you're not going to get rid of it. You're not going to get rid of any part of you. You are not going to get rid of any part of you. You are going to either mature the parts of you that are stuck in their immature behavior right now, get their needs met in new ways, and allow them to grow into something new. Or, heading back to that, the empath having so much more anxiety and pain and depression, and spiritual people are being told, again, this is just blows my mind. No. Spiritual people are being told that our anxiety and our depression and our fear and our lack and our just like emotional overwhelm is again something wrong with us or something we need to manage internally. Okay, no. We are feeling the impact. We, as emotional beings, are feeling the impact of how society is living that they are blind to. Because this, again, hustle culture, the way that we live in the West, that again, it evolved naturally. We got to this point in society in the 1940s where, especially in the United States, after the war, everything had been cleaned up. America had really profited off the war. A lot of people were stepping out of just trying to make ends meet, life is really hard, into we literally have more money than we need. We have more resources than we need. It's not just reserved for the kings and the queens anymore. It's not just reserved for the tribal leader. It's not just reserved for the head of the corporations. More and more people were coming into, I have enough now. And we all were thinking this was going to be the answer. We were going to feel good, finally. We were going to feel fulfilled because we have safety. We could party, we can drink, we can have these conveniences. We can have a washing machine, we can have a fridge, we can have ready-made foods. Like, look at all of this abundance. And what happened instead is people started to have existential crises. They were starting to go to psychologists and being like, I feel empty inside. I feel anxiety. I don't know who I am. I don't know what's going on. So number one, what was happening there? Well, we got our physical needs met. We were starting to feel safe. So what came up? The top of the pyramid. Self-expression. We were starting to look for identity. We were starting to say, okay, well, we don't need to be mob mentality anymore. We don't need to be so identified with the tribe because the tribe is survival. Because again, remember, forever, almost forever, as far as human history is concerned. Not finding your place in the tribe and that being how you knew what you were, right? That was the easy identity. What role do you fulfill in the tribe so that we can all survive? What do you do? What do you give us so that we will share the resources with you? Because again, remember, humanity is never going to be equal and never will be equal. There will always be the members of society who are better at obtaining resources than other people. Even if we got rid of all social construct and we all just returned to nature, it's not even. And it's not equal. There will always be the potential for some people to be better at obtaining resources than others. Therefore, having the capacity to control those resources. Therefore, having the capacity to control people. Because we need them. He who controls the food controls the people. There will always be the opportunity for someone or something to control the food. Because we're not equal. If my husband and I go out into nature by ourselves, it's just him and I. There's no social construct. I don't know I'm a woman. He doesn't know he's a man. We're saying, okay, we're here, we're what we are, let's just survive. He will have an easier time surviving than me. Because he's fitter, he's stronger, he's more resilient. Period. If he decided, I'm going to go collect all the food before you because I'm faster and I'm stronger and I can overpower you, right? This is the thing. His body is stronger than mine. He could easily tie me up if he wanted to. And then he can go and get all the food and then he can say, here's what you're going to do for me, or I'm not giving you food, or I'm not untying you. That's not a social construct. That's biological reality. So if we can understand that too, that we have a humanity that forever has had power struggle, has had power imbalance. The patriarchy is not where this started. The society we have right now is not where this started. This started with biology. This started with nature. There are simply people who are genetically weaker as far as collecting resources are concerned. And so forever, it doesn't matter what system we have. The system of capitalism, where the thing that makes you, right, like we're constantly rejiggering what makes the human being valuable based on what the culture values at the time. Because again, like especially in the Western world, what do we value? entertainment. Because most of us can get our needs met pretty easy. So the people who are making the most money, have the most resources, are the best at getting resources for themselves, are the people that have the capacity to entertain, the people that control the entertainers. And I would say, a lot of political stuff is entertainment. And the people who are providing these resources, like Bill Gates made his money because he gave us the internet. And that's obviously something we really value. And so our system created Bill Gates, the billionaire, who now has so much more money than everyone else. Okay, but then again, what did Bill Gates have to do to become Bill Gates? Who did he have to not pay? Who in all of this? Okay, so this is where we as empaths are starting to feel that hustle culture and the way that our system is set up is not fair, and we feel it. Because what you're feeling is that absolutely, the culture we have right now requires slavery. It still exists. In order for all these goods that we have to be produced so cheaply, there's exploitation happening. There's people not being paid living wages. There are CEOs that are taking huge amounts of money and not paying their staff. And we buy their products. And we're saying that's okay. And most of us don't even know. Right? Like being vegan. Most of us don't know what goes on in the slaughterhouses. We don't know how the land is being destroyed. We don't, and then we nitpick about like how, well, plants are doing that too, and nothing's perfect and all these things, but it's like we're getting lost in the weeds of looking for perfect a lot of the time. But the first thing we have to understand, again, is that how hustle culture has us roped in to being consumers. Because again, it doesn't matter if what you're consuming is more self-help stuff, more meditation retreats, the right yoga clothes, the right yoga mat, the more food than you need, more than you need. It doesn't matter if it's the most conscious thing. If it's more than you need, we have to be asking ourselves, why am I consuming more than I need? Why do I have more things that I need? Do I actually need that next crystal? Do I really need that third yoga mat? Do I really need, we have to start looking and saying, okay, but why? Why do I think that I need this? Why do I think I need that next retreat, that next course, that next thing? What am I running from? What am I trying to get? What am I thinking this is going to give me? And again, we're always going to find approval, safety, and this gnawing sense that we're not good enough. And we're looking for that thing that's going to get rid of our anxiety, get rid of our depression, get rid of our childhood traumas we don't know we're carrying around, and get rid of the awareness that we have that the way this system is set up is harmful because it keeps us distracted. Because this is the thing. Everybody who's in our culture, the not enough culture, because again, in that century of self, what happened? Everyone has the existential crisis of I don't know myself. I don't know where I fit. I don't know my purpose. And so what marketing companies started to do was say, we can sell you that. We can sell you identity. Now it's not about where do I fit in the tribe so that I can survive. Now it's about how am I special? How am I different? What do my clothes say about me? What does my job say about me? What do my goods say about me? They stopped selling us goods based on utility and how it will make you like everyone else, because that was what safety was. They started selling us goods based on how it makes you different, how it makes you unique, how it gives you an identity, how it shows what your purpose is. And then the spirituality world came right in and says, we can capitalize on that. We'll continue to tell you how shitty you are in subtle ways. We'll completely start to agree with you that there's something wrong with you, and we can help you fix it. And it's something wrong with you. It's not something that happened to you. You have no history. You're just shitty. You're addicted. You're coping. You're not spiritual. You're not kind. It's okay. Come to the retreat. We'll scream and yell and walk on fire. And you'll be fixed. We'll whip you into that positivity frenzy. We'll realize it's all just negative beliefs that you invented for no reason. And we'll fix you. It's a lie. And it keeps us distracted. Because this is what it really boils down to. Is that so many of the systems out there, fossil fuels, these huge corporations, the fact that we have such consolidation of power in such concentrated places, like 1% of the population having 99.99% of the wealth, the fact that that is existing is because we are so distracted. We in the middle have the power to change this. But we first have to let ourselves feel that, yeah, this isn't working. That gnawing ache we feel is coming from hating ourselves, and that we came by honestly. We learned to hate all the parts of ourselves that our caregivers rejected, and they rejected them for reasons of, if you are that way, they're not going to get their needs met, right? It all comes down to we think whatever we are is going to get us rejected, and then we're going to die. So doing your inner child work is foundational. Stop buying stuff and start doing your inner child work. Meaning, all these parts of yourself that are self-destructive, that you feel like you have to reject, that you see are immature and act in ways that are immature. The things that you're constantly trying to improve out of yourself. These are just the parts of you, the parts of your DNA that got locked in childhood. They're not getting their needs met. They're getting their needs met in the only way they know how. And they're traumatized. And they're afraid to be different. You are afraid to accept them. You are afraid to love them. Like, you literally see them as an existential threat because they got you rejected. So we need to stop listening to any spirituality, any self-help, any self-improvement that tells you that this started with you and that you can get rid of it. Because you're not going to get rid of it. You're going to love these parts into safety. You're going to slowly start to recognize your adultness and that you can be rejected and still get your needs met. And as you slowly do this work, you're also going to come aware of the anxiety and the depression and the fear that you feel. That's you empathing the system we have. That you can feel that $15 t-shirt that should cost $60 based on the material and all the things, why does it cost $15? Who didn't get a paycheck because of this? Who got exploited? Right? And we're going to start to see it everywhere. No wonder we're all so depressed and anxious. Because we can feel that the way that we're living is harmful. We don't know why, because we're blind to it. We're separated from it. We don't see the child labor. We don't see the CEO sexually abusing. We don't see all of these things. We're completely disconnected from where all of our resources come from. So we're consuming them, and we can feel what's actually going on, but our mental mind has no idea. So we just think we're crazy. No, you're not crazy. You're feeling the system of exploitation, that how we even got here to this point of all this abundance required slavery. The system that we have, if you want to be rich, in the world that exists right now, you require that someone doesn't have enough. Because that's the system. You didn't invent it. So this is why, don't have shame. These abundance teachings, that you should be rich and you should be spiritual, and it's spiritual to be rich, and you should have so much more than you need, it plays into our fear of not enough, that we all have trigger trauma about, right? I'm not enough. Who I wasn't good enough. Parents didn't accept me. I almost died 100 million times to your child brain and child body. Every time your parents rejected you, you feel like you almost died. So we all have trauma. All of us have post-traumatic stress from our childhoods. That's why we're all so whacked out and disconnected and can't feel and are trying to cope and numb. And we're so susceptible to the buy more, improve more. Maybe if I become this, I will finally be accepted by the guru, by the teacher, by society. That's being triggered in us in every bit of marketing that exists. Every bit of marketing that says anything about we can fix you, we can help you, we can heal you, we will make you better. It will be better when you do this, when you buy this, when you have this. It's feeding on your trauma that you're not enough. And then the spiritual teaching that being rich, okay, no. Again, that's feeding into our fear that there isn't enough for us. And if we finally get to that millionaire, we will be safe because we will have enough money to have the resources. And we have to understand that to a degree that is true. Because absolutely, not having enough is also an existential threat. This is not about swinging way the other way and saying we shouldn't have anything. No. There's enough on this planet for everyone to have enough. There's enough on the planet for everyone to have enough food, a shelter, a capacity to work in a community where we all have our completely unequal, not the same ways of providing for ourselves and each other. There will always be people who are better at it than others, and other people who are worse at it than others. And so the society we're going for is a society built on empathy and compassion. This is what we've never had before. Where we say, there are some people who are literally physically disabled. They are never going to be the producers like these people are. So what are we going to do? Are we going to say we value them? And we're going to value everyone equally? So we're going to make equity, not equality? It's not everyone just fight for yourself. Because there will always be that people are better at it than others. We say, no, we're going to work together. The people who have the capacity to overpower are going to choose not to. That's the answer. Bill Gates shouldn't have taken all that money. He should have paid his employees properly. He should have paid fair prices. And not even necessarily give the money away, because charity isn't the answer either. But there should have been social systems in place, like this is where we're going. That there will just be social systems in place where that abundance that's being generated by him gets him enough. And then the rest of it goes to redistribute to society in infrastructure, in social programs, to create the capacity for people who are just never going to be able to survive on their own, to have a good quality of life. Like, we're going to have to decide somewhere that life is just worthy of being. That it stops being about how much do you produce, what do you give to the culture. Because again, remember, we have that. What am I doing? What am I producing? Am I good enough? Am I good? But that's natural. Because that's how you were valued for literally ever. What do you give to society so that we all survive better? That's where the value came from. Because we were all trying to get resources to survive, to be better. And now we live in a way where we don't have to live like that anymore. We have figured stuff out enough that we can create an equitable society. And so it starts, again, with us. We have to get out of this hustle culture where we work harder than we need to work. Because again, right, you overwork, then you require convenience foods, Starbucks, uppers, downers, stimulants, all these things. Keeping yourself distracted so you don't see that you're funding these companies that make the system run the way that it runs. You're so distracted, you're so in your own shit, you're so in your I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, that you don't see. So you're continuing to participate in these systems and you're continually manipulatable by these marketing gurus who play on it constantly. Spirituality world, self-help world, normal, doesn't matter. It's all the same shit. Just keep triggering them that they're not enough, so they'll keep being distracted and buying stuff, and then the system gets to stay how it is. The billionaires stay billionaires, the politicians stay politicians, that everyone else remains a slave. We have to be the ones that start to say, no, no, no. And again, this is not about becoming a perfect minimalist, not having anything. We're going to all take steps to just acknowledge our anxiety, acknowledge our depression. It's nothing wrong with you. It's not because you lack something. You're traumatized and you're feeling the results of a system that suck. Love yourself. Become your own best friend. Start to nourish these parts of you that got rejected. That's the first step. That's why self-love is the foundation to all of this. Start to recognize and realize where you're going to the outside, grasping at that, and where it's like, no, no, it's not that. What are my actual needs? When I self-destruct, why did I do that? Because that's a part of me that if I expressed that way in my childhood, I was going to die. Well, now I need to start doing that anyways. I'm coping because I'm in pain. It's not my fault. I didn't invent it. We start with this. And then you're going to start to see the system for how it is. You're going to start to wake up to this. The matrix, that's taking the red pill. Accepting every part of yourself as a good part that's just trying to help you survive, and then seeing why that's how you have to survive in our society, that's the red pill. You'll see how it's set up. And then you will start to say, okay, well, how can I start to opt out? I'm not going to go for the million. I don't need a million. I have enough. So then now I can start to prepare my own food instead of buy it out. Now I don't need so much stimulant because I don't have to work so hard. So I don't have to support Starbucks. Right? We have the power to stop investing in these things. To start investing in fair trade. To start to invest in social programs, like not charity, but like people that are actually saying, I'm going to create equity. We're just going to provide for these people who are never going to be able to provide for themselves. So that they can have a quality of life, because everyone deserves that. Period. Like, we have to start deciding this. So it starts with self-love. And then it grows into you're going to become aware of how this system is working and how you're being manipulated, and you're going to stop buying so much stuff. It's not even about finding the right stuff to buy. It's just less stuff, just less. Spend less time consuming, more time feeling, more time whatever. And understanding that you're not here to be a production machine. You're not here to be inspired all the time. You're supposed to rest. You're supposed to be uninspired sometimes. So you can just rest and do nothing and play, and that's the human life. It's not about productivity constantly. So please read the articles, watch Century of the Self, watch my other videos. Let's keep having this discussion. But you are being manipulated by the spirituality world, and hustle culture is killing us. It's making slaves out of all of us. And it's not working for anyone. So we need to evolve past it. Okay? So love yourself enough that you can see it so we can move forward. Thank you.